Howdy folks, OGB here. In this video, I'll be going over the new Holy Shockadin DPS build for Paladins in Season of Discovery. I'll be covering both the one-handed and two-handed variant, as well as going over some second bis options and gear swaps you can make if you don't have the items that I'm going to be going over in the bis list. That said, huge shout out to Alacor, Borg, and JH in the Paladin Discord. Thank you guys so much for helping get all this stuff simmed. And thank you to everybody who has been part of the Shockadin community and kept pushing to make stuff like this happen. Let's go ahead and get into the first set. Okay, so here we have our one-handed pre-bis set. And when I say pre-bis, I mean everything up to Scarlet Enclave. So, Helm of the Holy Avenger, 3-piece ZG, Grand Crusader Shoulder, we're running the Exile bonus, Cloak of Consumption, more ZG gear, Hungering Cold for our bis weapon, or it's bis and pre-bis, excuse me, Wormscale Blocker, Libram of Fervor, Gauntlets of the Righteous Champion, Belt of the Grand Crusader, Leggings of the Grand Crusader, Boots of Fright, the Zanzel's Seal and Band, Scrolls of Blinding Light, and Kiss of the Spider. This is a 180-second sim. Now, you might be kind of disappointed seeing Libram of Fervor on here. And this, because it is a bis sim, this has external Sanctity aura. So let's pretend that we don't have that and we're going to use the Sanctity Libram instead. Not the biggest deal in the world. It's 100 DPS, so really not the thing you need to worry about if you're building for Shockadin. We'll go ahead and put Fervor back on. Since this is the first set, this is where I'm going to show most of the gear swaps and alternate options that you can use. Next, we can look at shields. Wormscale Blocker, almost identical to something like Red Dragon Scale Protector. And it's really not much different if you run like the Grand Marshal's Shield or the Shield off Kel'Thuzad either. You just want to have a shield and have Law of Nature on it. Alright, so next let's look at weapons. Hungering Cold, being at 1.2 speed, really is just truly the bis weapon. Weapon speed is absolutely king for this kind of Paladin DPS. And the second bis is going to be something like Widow's Remorse. So, about 200 DPS lower. And then if we want to go to something else, we can use, Truth Bearer is another good option. Unfortunately, it doesn't stack with scrolls, so we need to make a swap there to something else. We'll just go with Old Faithful, Hand of Justice. And you can even go down to something like, a 1.6 weapon before it starts to really drop off. But that's probably about as slow as you would want to go. So let's go ahead, we'll put it back to the bis set. I will take a look at some ring swaps. Okay, I know Zanzels is kind of hard to get. It took me forever to get this set on just one of my paladins. So one thing you can do is you can switch over to the Time-Worn ring. Since we do have a few Time-Worn pieces on, you can use the Signet of the Bronze Dragonflight. I prefer to use the Agility one because we don't gain that much from Strength, and Agility does translate into Spell Crit through the Wrath rune for Sunlight now. So you could do that and run just one Zanzel's band, or you could put on another really good caster ring like Seal of the Damned. And it's going to sim lower, but it ain't that bad. As you can see. As far as the rest of the gear goes, there's really nothing major to swap. You're getting hit from your boots, so if you do want to swap something out, you kind of want to consider getting another hit piece somewhere else. All right, let's move on. Oh, actually, we'll look at the rotation before we move on completely from this. So here we are looking at the rotation, and this is basically what it should look like. Holy Shock, Crusader Strike, Holy Shock, Exorcism, Holy Shock, Crusader Strike. The prio is Crusader Strike, Holy Shock, Exorcism. You can throw Divine Storm in there as well. I find that there isn't really room in the rotation to be casting it very often, simply because you want to press Holy Shock on cooldown every time that it's up, just in case you get a resist or it doesn't crit. If it doesn't crit, you only have 4 seconds before you need to shock again in order to maintain your sunlight buff, and dropping that off is a pretty big DPS loss. So you're always going to be shocking whenever you can, and ideally that's every other GCD. So you can see I do have Divine Storm turned on in the rotation. It's the lowest prio, and we can move it up. Let's move it up above Exorcism and see if that makes a big difference. It's actually a little bit lower. So that's pretty much my take on Divine Storm right there. Play Hallowed Ground. That way, if there is some sort of mechanic that's dealing a lot of damage and you want to help out and provide some self-healing or a group healing, you have that option. We're not even pressing Consecrate in this rotation, but I can tell you right now, if I do put it in there, it's not going to make a huge difference. And realistically, it's something that you're going to cast not on cooldown, but when you want the healing from it, as opposed to doing a lot of damage, unless maybe you're in a situation where there's a large amount of targets. Okay, I think that's pretty much it for the gear swaps and the one-handed build. So let's, for the pre-bis at least. So now let's look at a couple of the bis sets for the one-hander. So here is the first one that we're going to take a look at. This one is using 3-piece ZG, which means we're getting that Holy Shock bonus and the Exorcism bonus because we have an Exile shoulder. And a lot of the same gear. Notable differences are the Shroud of Embalmed, the Abandoned Experiment, Savior Sandals, and the Darkstorm Gauntlets. So I have this one in here because it's using both the Exorcism and the Holy Shock bonus. The other BIS set is about 100 DPS higher. I'll pull that one over right now. Oh, that's not it. Here it is. At 11.5. But this one, it just doesn't feel quite as good to play, not having the big damage on Exorcism. You're going to be relying a little bit more on Divine Storm in order to proc more Sunlight to make up the damage. So, in my opinion, this is a playstyle choice, more so than it is a DPS choice. You're going to be doing close to BIS DPS with either build. It's a very, very small difference between, what is this, 11,512 and 11,403. So I would say pick one of those two and go from there. Alright, now here we are looking at the two-handed pre-bis. As you can see, the two-handed pre-bis, it does start out much lower than the one-handed pre-bis. So that is one of the differences between these two variants right now, is one-handed starts out with a better pre-bis, and two-handed finishes out with a better bis. So we'll get to that in a minute, but first let's go over the pre-bis set. We have Helm of the Holy Avenger, 5-piece ZG, Spalders of the Grand Crusader, and we're using the Exo Communicator enchant, Cloak of the Devoured, or ZG stuff, Kalimdor's Revenge for the weapon, Gauntlets of the Righteous Champion, more ZG gear, Leggings of the Grand Crusader, Boots of Fright, and the Zanzel set. And of course our ZG Trinket and Kiss of the Spider. Same thing goes for the Libram swaps with this build, and the other viable weapon for it is going to be the two-handed Truth Bearer. Kalimdor's Revenge, however, does sim the best. Claymore of Unholy Might is about equivalent with two-handed Truth Bearer, so if you have that, you can run it, but in my opinion, it's not worth having the 5% extra damage taken debuff versus Truth Bearer doing the same amount of damage, or Kalimdor's Revenge doing even more. Also, 8.2 is a perfectly good pre-bis DPS range to be in. It's more than enough to go into the raid and not be considered a griefer or a meme. Okay, let's look at the two-handed bis. Okay, so this is the intellect-based two-handed bis Shockadin set. 11,793. It's right up there with the bis simming Wrath-like and Exodin builds, which are also in the 11.6 to 11.7 range. So the balance on this is pretty good. We are using Shroud of the Embalmed, 5-piece ZG, Spalders of the Grand Crusader, Flag of the Broken Admiral. There's just more ZG gear. Leogan, Libram of Wrath, assuming that you have external Sank. Otherwise, you can use Fervor, or you can use the Libram of Sanctity. Inquisition Gloves, so we can have the 2-piece Holy Power bonus for 30% extra damage. More ZG gear, Leggings of the Grand Crusader, and the Inquisition Greaves to complete that bonus. Then the Zanzel's Band and Seal, Abandoned Experiment, and the ZG Trinket. Okay, let's back up a little bit. And we do also have a full strength build Shockadin, just in case somebody out there wants to play it. I know this is the least popular variant of Shockadin, but I figured we have the list, I might as well put it in the video. So this is wearing the full 6-piece Tier 4, all the ret stuff. Hope of Harad, Harad's Pauldron for the offset piece, Scarlet Commander's Cape, Leogan, of course, Girdle of the Reborn Champion for another offset piece, the Band of Redemption, Balin's Band, Abandoned Experiment, and Sir Dornell's Didgeridoo. So, probably a much harder to acquire set for a little bit less damage. You'd be better served actually playing Ret if you were to have all this gear, but if for some reason you just want to be a Shockadin, you can do it, and you're well within the range of competent BIS level DPS. So yeah, I think that's all the sets. The rotation obviously is a little bit different again for the two-handed variant. Let's take a look and see what our results are like in the sim on the timeline. So starting out with the Shock, and then Exorcism, Exorcism, Crusader Strike, Exorcism, Exorcism, Shock, Exorcism, Crusader Strike. Really not something you can mess up too badly. There will be links to all of this stuff down in the description. If you're wondering what gear I am wearing right now on my set, I'll go ahead and show it. So I have my Helm of the Holy Avenger, Gauntlets of the Righteous Champion, my 3-piece CG, I've got my Crusader gear on, Quiraji Silk Cloak, more ZG stuff, and my weapon, the best one that I have on this tune right now, is a Blaze Fury Retributor, which isn't bad. It has the fire damage, which helps reset my Exorcism cooldown, which isn't necessarily a huge DPS increase, but it's nice quality of life to have. I have Wormscale Buckler, I'm wearing Grand Marshal's Shield because it looks cooler, Libram of Sanctity, Hand of Reborn Justice, Kiss of the Spider, the Zanzil set, Avengers Boots because it's just the best piece I have, and I have my Leggings of the Grand Crusader, or I also have a time-worn leg plates of the Blazing Light if I wanted to lean into that, Belt of the Grand Crusader, and Gauntlets of the Righteous Champion. I think this sims for somewhere around 9K, so fairly decent pre-bis set, and it looks cool as hell. Now, what are some other things about Shockadin that you would want to know? Well, we're not using a normal seal. That would be the first thing to know. We are actually using Seal of the Crusader because, like I said earlier, attack speed is king, so we just want to be swinging as fast as possible with our one-hander. And we don't receive the damage reduction on Sunlight from Seal of the Crusader, which is where most of our damage is coming from. You can see on my last details breakdown right here. Let me move it even closer to the center of the screen. I don't actually have any seal damage in there. Essentially, Sunlight is the seal that a Shockadin uses. So think of it as a seal. It even gets nerfed by the Seal Bearer negative seal damage percentage, and that'll kind of help you wrap your brain around why it's doing so much damage a little better. That said, I hope this guide helps you out. I hope this gives you an idea of how to play and what to wear. If you have questions, I highly encourage you join the Light Club Discord, post your gear set, and we will help you out. OGB out.